2023 is a year that has some movies that I've seen. There were also the WGA and AMPTP strikes that made me worry about the medium of film and TV as a whole. But we seem to be fine at the moment for what me and my friends have seen. I see some people call this year mid compared to the other years from this current decade, and while this year is a step down compared to 2022, there are some really damn great highs this year that we will get to, since this is a top 10 list of the movies I've seen this year video after all. Movies that I will never forget about for better and for worse. The one thing I can give this year is that it has one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Thanks, DC. Keep in mind that I have not seen everything that has come out this year, like Past Lives, Next Goal Wins, Wonka, and Tetris to name a few. But I won't mention the movies that I really liked, so here you go.
You are not good enough for my daughter, and I don't want you around her.
Theater Camp was a surprisingly funny mockumentary movie. It also helps that I am a theater kid, so I got the jokes. Nimona was a surprisingly funny film that would be the best Blue Sky movie if it came out before 2020. Asteroid City was a fun Wes Anderson movie. Shin Kamen Rider was a fun watch, even as someone who doesn't really understand the franchise. Thanks, Buster. John Wick 4 was the weakest movie in the quadrilogy, but had the best action in the series and some weird world building that I always eared up. Elemental was a movie that I wasn't expecting to be one I was into, but here we are. Inside was an interesting experience and Willem Dafoe was in it, and that is really all I can say on it. Blue Beetle was a fun superhero movie, mainly about family, with some action scenes that are fun to watch. Okay, now we are in the 9 out of 10 club. You must watch the movies or I'll send Whitey from 8 Crazy Nights to your house.
Hey, do you mind if I put a poster in your window? It's for my mom. She's missing.
Realistically, this movie shouldn't be on the list to begin with, but this movie was one that hooked me until the very end. Missing is an experience I never want to forget, and want to try to find more like that. It's a movie that is through the perspective of the screens our main character uses, from MacBooks to Apple Watches, which makes the editing very creative and keeps us up to date on what's happening with what June is doing. The mystery is also captivating because of how they try to get closer to finding out what happened to June's mother. Though the problem I have with this movie is that there are moments that are a little too unrealistic, like a certain moment that happens at the end of the movie, and some moments can be a slog to get through, but I quite enjoy this one, and I am impressed with the way the movie is edited. This movie might not be for everyone, but I'd say it is still worth watching. Yep, it's that good. TMNT Mutant Mayhem is a movie I haven't stopped thinking about after my first watch through. I already made a review on this movie, and I still stand by it. I like the art style of this movie that makes it stand out from other animated films, making it look like a teenager drew it. I like how the teenage aspect of the TMNT was a primary focus of the movie instead of it being secondary like most other TMNT media. I like the voice acting and the fact that they got actual teenagers to voice the TMNT in this movie, and it is something I wish more films and TV shows would do. I like the action scenes that really make the most of the moment and are very well choreographed. The only thing that I could say irks me in this is that these TMNT properties try to make a love interest with April, and that's always the worst part of any incarnation. God, I hope this doesn't get expanded in future TMNT products. But other than that, I love this movie and I highly recommend it.
Okay, now what? Open the fucking door!
It's no secret that Marvel in recent years hasn't really made a movie worth holding our attention in quite a bit. And it's quite saddening, especially after the abysmal quality of Ant-Man Quantumania. Why do I remember that movie when I want to forget about it? But hey, James Gunn gave us one of the best MCU movies, so there's that. I am shocked by how much I love Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I had to think on it for a while to think where it would be in my MCU ranking, and I think it's one of the best ones after all of this. What I love about this movie is the finality I felt while watching it. The characters truly feel like they came to their own, and their character arcs were complete by the end of the movie. The comedy is top notch as always with the Guardians films and holiday special. This would probably be my favorite to watch in terms of comedy. The action, while not as amazing as John Wick, is really engaging, and what I think cements it as my favorite in the series is that its main focus is on Rocket the Raccoon. Rocket was always a favorite character of mine in the MCU, but the fact that this movie fleshes him out with the flashback scenes and moments near the climax that teared me up a bit made me look back on the film through the perspective in this movie and cemented him as probably the best written character in the MCU, and the fact that the characters, after seeing what he suffered through, go through an entire mission to save him, just made this group feel like a family that I wanted to see be happy at the end. I love this movie so much. I hope that people who have stopped watching the MCU at least give this movie a shot, since it's not only one of the better MCU movies recently, but one of the best MCU movies ever made. I hope James Gunn does a great job with the DC movies in the future.
She got them apple bottom jeans, boots with the fur.
Emma Seligman impressed me when I saw her first year film Shiva Baby back in 2021, and I was excited to see what she would do with the next drama movie she made. That she made a comedy and I bought a ticket. Bottoms is so fantastic. It really shows how high school really isn't a safe haven for everyone at all, and works by making the main character the bottom of the cake chain, one might say. The main characters are so great in this movie. Ayo Arabri is in everything every nowadays, but her character was probably my favorite because of how oblivious she is with the plan and how on the fly she has to be. Rachel Sennett was also funny to watch on screen, going from a calm Jew and Shiva Baby to a manic insane person in this movie, which is just honestly the best thing they could have done with her. This is also a comedy, and I think the comedy was on point in this. I know some people will find the humor in this to be a little not their cup of tea, let's say, and that's okay, but it was definitely my kind of humor. My favorite joke is probably anything that had to do with the interaction with the club. They were just all so hysterical to watch in action. I also love how fruity the football team are with how they talk, and the breakdown in the car at the beginning of the movie. That's all I'll say. God, this is alright, just watch it already. Never in my life have I ever been more uncomfortable than watching May December. It seems like a simple story at first. This actress wants to learn all she can about this woman so that she can make a movie about her, but at a certain point, you learn some horrific things about this woman and her husband, and the many interpretations and stories that the other characters tell the actress. The more the actress talks to the characters in this movie, the more they think about themselves and their lives, like Grace's husband, who is pretty unsatisfied at the beginning, but by the halfway point, he is questioning things about his life and what he wants to do when all of his kids have graduated. The actress seems like she is a bystander that does not affect much, but near the end, she does something that shocked me to the core and made me rethink all the conversations she had throughout the rest of the movie. By the end of the movie, I knew for a fact that I would never want to be a method actor in my life if I ever go down that route. I definitely need to watch this one again, so I think I would learn more on a second watch through. But for now, I will say, sit down, fire up Netflix, and watch May December. It is a movie you will never forget. Man, that Tenet was such a disappointment as a Christopher Nolan fan. I didn't see it. But hey, I saw Oppenheimer in theaters and I loved it. This is a movie I think needs to be seen by everyone. And almost everyone saw this as well as Barbie. Thanks memes, you did something good for us, but not you TikTok. Fuck you. I don't really go on my way to watch 3-hour movies since this is probably just a me thing, but I think movies being 3 hours is something that shouldn't be normalized. But Oppenheimer is one of the few movies where I was engaged throughout the whole thing. It's about the creation of the first nuclear bomb. The movie starts off with his life before the creation, but then it blindsides you after it is done, by showing the effects that this bomb had on Oppenheimer's mentality and how it affected the world. It's a film that is deeply thought-provoking. It leaves you to ponder what happened. It's a film that I think is worthy of its reputation for that alone. The cinematography is masterful in the way that it is used. The acting is phenomenal across the entire board. I will say that my biggest problem is that the movie can be really slow at times, and if your movie has parts of it really being slow and clocks in at 3 hours, then that should say something. But other than that, I am glad that I saw this in theaters. It witnessed the story of a man from both his perspective and from another person's. Please watch this movie if you can. It is something for the ages. I never before wanted to give a movie a 10 out of 10 so much before. The Holdovers is a fantastic film that I think everyone should watch. This movie is almost as perfect as it can be. I can talk about many reasons why I love this movie. The comedy being perfect, the simple score enhancing it, the film aspects alone. But what I want to focus on for this segment is the characters. There are some of the most well-realized characters I have seen in any movie this year. Angus is a troublemaker, but we learn at the beginning that his mother decided to leave him at school over winter break, and that in his words, "My father is dead," which makes you understand why he is the way he is, especially later on in the film. Paul is a teacher that no one likes at all, but over the film, you see that he changes and becomes a more likable person by the end thanks to Agnes and Mary. Mary is someone who isn't a primary focus like Agnes and Paul, but what makes her work is that she helps these characters the most, telling them the problems or the things they did wrong. And about halfway, when she's with her sister, you feel happy for her. These three characters are well written and the acting goes a long way, with Carl Giamatti being my favorite performance of the year. I wish I could talk more about this film to people, but I can't stay on here forever or else it will be a holdovers review. I highly recommend this film to everyone. It's shaping to be a Christmas classic. I'm gonna be real here. This was the hardest movie to write about. I don't hate it. It's number 3 on this list for a reason. But man, there is so much in this movie that I can't say. One of the defining aspects of this movie is that we don't know much about it. When we see the trailers, I can firmly say that the trailers are some of the best trailers for any movie because it tells you anything aside from the first 2 minutes of the movie. But I will try my best to explain this movie to you all. From the moment the movie started, I was infatuated by the story that was happening. The main thing about the movie is that Mahito's mother died in a fire, and that sparks the events of the movie with Mahito grieving about the loss of his mother. He doesn't cry about her, but you can tell that he is grieving when you learn how he got the bald spot on the side of his head, and how he doesn't talk for a pretty good length of the movie. Most of the movie is the actions he does. It's not until the Heron shows up where it all goes straight to hell. Also, I saw this movie dubbed, and whenever I heard the Heron talk, I heard Robert Pattinson, "Curse you, Olivia! Curse you!" The pacing of this movie works so well, where we learn things little by little, till by nearly the end of the movie, we know the entire world, which is something the best Ghibli movies have, like Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle. Also, since this is a Ghibli movie, there are moments that are unsettling, and they work really well since this movie is from the perspective of Mahito. There are so many moments in the second half that kept me engaged with this movie. There is a scene that isn't meant to be emotional whatsoever, and yet I cried at it with the gorgeous visuals I've ever seen in an anime movie, with the amazing score by Joro Hisaishi making me tear up at it. I wish I could go on about The Boy and the Heron, but I'm trying my damnedest not to spoil the movie and gushing about it to you all. While I do think the 2 other movies I have on the list are my favorites, The Boy and the Heron might be the best movie to come out this year. By the time I'm writing this, it is still in theaters, but by the time this release date, it's not, so I'd say wait for it to come out on Max. It is definitely worth a watch. What can I say about Across the Spider-Verse that hasn't already been said? I do think that it being higher rated than Into the Spider-Verse on Letterboxd, overtaking it in the top 250, is something that I personally don't agree with. But this is a fantastic movie at the end of the day. The animation in this movie is more vibrant and all over the place than the original, with it having characters looking like they are made out of newspaper, cartoons from the 60s, and so much more. The soundtrack is just as much of a feast for the ears as the originals, with songs I have been listening to all the time. The action is fantastic, even with the amount of Spider-Man and Spider-Woman on screen, with how well choreographed it is, and the set pieces that they make creative uses out of, like bustling hillsides of Spider-Man India's universe. The comedy is on point, and I'd argue funnier than the original, with jokes that still make me laugh at how many times I've seen this movie. The ending is something I think I will never forget. Gwen is the best character in this movie and feels like the main character at moments over Miles himself, which is something I never thought was gonna happen. While I do miss the characters that were in Into the Spider-Verse, that was a weird sentence I said, I really love the new characters that were introduced and across. Everyone talks about Hobie, but my guys, Pavitr Paparkar is amazing and he needs the world to love him. I don't know what else to say about this movie that hasn't already been said. This movie is simply a masterpiece, and if Beyond is as amazing as Into and Across, we're gonna have a fucking field day with this trilogy. Also, fuck you executives. Holy shit, I wanted to talk about Barbie for so long now, you guys. I mean, I could have made a video on Barbie, but I felt like making a review on the new TMNT since I saw it early. But holy shit, I love this movie so much, y'all. You have no idea. I had no doubts about this movie when I saw that Greta Gerwig was directing and Noah Baumbach was co-writing with Greta Gerwig. These two have made some of my favorite movies ever made, with Lady Bird and Marriage Story. So I had no doubt that they would make a story that would hold my attention, and hold my attention indeed. This movie has many things going for it, and how it's an entertaining story that knows the internal struggles of not only just females, but also the struggles that men face as well, which was something I did not expect at all when watching this movie in the theater. I gotta gush about the set design in Barbie Land, since the set's Kowloon caused a pink paint shortage, which just screams dedication to this movie about a Mattel product of all things. What I love the most about this movie is that it feels like a huge blockbuster that wants to have fun. Nowadays, we don't see much creative or batshit insane stuff nowadays. We don't see crazy things like Michael Cera beating up up a movie store or defeating someone with vegan powers, but this movie gives us I'm Just Ken, which is both a great song for the story and how Ken feels, as well as a bop that I listen to way too much. I think I have a problem with I'm Just Ken. This movie is something I am never gonna stop thinking about as long as I live. I think everyone who worked on this movie deserves all the accolades they got, and I hope they win the nominations at the Oscars. This goes to show that Greta Gerwig is the best female director in the business, and I hope to God that the Thomas movie is as good as this. Welp, that is my list. If you want to see the whole list this year, I will link my list on Letterboxd in the description of this video. And until then, have a nice day.